the Hip Hop Scholar Podcast, where beats meet bibliographies and sound becomes scholarship. I'm your host, Melanie, the Hip Hop Scholar. This is the space where we sit down with the artists, the builders, and the thinkers who are putting real work into the culture. My goal is always to give people their flowers while they can still smell them and to document the journeys behind the music. And today, we are talking with someone whose story really represents what independent hip hop looks like in real life. Today's guest is Boxx the Hungry Genius, recording artist, entrepreneur, and CEO out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. You can find him on Instagram at BOXX_hungry, where he describes himself as a national recording artist and entrepreneur who is lyrically inclined with a business mind. And that phrase stood out to me because hip hop has always needed artists who understand both sides, the creative side and the business side. Boxx, whose name is Christopher Kelson, started writing music at a young age and built his foundation through group work before eventually stepping out on his own as a solo artist. Over time, he developed not just an artist, but as a businessman, eventually creating Hungry Boy Records, investing in himself, and building his career independently. That independent grind is something we expect here because there are a lot of artists that are out here waiting to be discovered. But Boxx built his own lane. And what stands out to me also about his music is the intentionality behind it. When you listen to Boxx the Hungry Genius, you hear an artist who is focused on message and longevity, not just quick singles. His records reflect Southern hip hop tradition, grounded delivery, storytelling, and a clear sense of identity. There is a confidence in the music that comes from experience, not just the ambition. Songs like Blame It on the DJ bring that live energy Southern feel, the kind of record that connects with real audiences and real environments, while still showing the personality behind the artist. And that balance between authentic street perspective and business-minded discipline is what really defines the Hungry Genius brand. Because being a hungry genius is not just his name, it's his mindset. It's about staying focused when nobody else is watching. It's about investing in yourself when nobody else will. It's also about believing in your vision enough to build something real from the ground up. Boxx is also a Louisiana Creative Musician Award winner, which speaks to the recognition he has earned through years of consistency and dedication to the craft. Coming out of BR, he represents a city with a deep hip hop tradition. And you can hear the Southern influence in both the music and the mentality behind the work. And beyond the music, he has also worked with artist development and entrepreneurship, helping other artists understand the business side of what they do, which tells me this is someone thinking long-term about the culture. This is exactly the kind of artist we respect here on the Hip Hop Scholar Podcast because this platform is documenting the builders, the independent thinkers, the ones that are creating their own opportunities. So today we're going to talk to Boxx to talk about the journey, the mindset, the music, and what it really means to stay hungry in this industry. So without further ado, welcome to the Hip Hop Scholar Podcast, Boxx the Hungry Genius.
Introduction. that's man, that gave me chills listening to that. Oh. That really emotionally touched me. That's the best introduction I've ever had in my career. That man, that did something to me. I appreciate that.
Oh, you are most welcome. I take the effort for all of my guests to do my research to make certain that you understand how much I am thankful for you being on this platform, sharing with my audience about the excellence that you bring to our culture of hip hop. So I appreciate the appreciation and the hard work and dedication that you have done and continue to do as well.
I received that. Thank you so much, Miss Melanie. And I want to just give a huge shout out to Flood for recommending your podcast and getting me on here. Elite lyricist from Louisiana. a good person to be a friend with outside of music. So shout out to Flood. I just wanted to give him his flowers for introducing us.
Absolutely. Yeah, Flood, New Roads, representing New Roads.
Shout out to New Roads, Louisiana.
Yeah, he when I saw him, it was that beat off that Kappa before the Kappa beat, and I
Yeah.
was like, good God, like just monster on the beat. But then having an interview with him, he was very modest, and I laughed. I said, "Oh, you are just Clark
He a
Kent and
gentle
Superman,
giant.
huh?"
Yeah, he a gentle giant.
That's amazing. But yeah, he's I'm really looking forward to all the artists that he has recommended to me. And so Boxx, we're here to talk about you, young brother. So happy to have you here. So let's begin. That first question I ask everyone, when did you fall in love with hip hop? Let's talk about it.
I fell in love with hip hop, I want to say, listening to it maybe about 13. I hadn't developed the mindset or the desire to do music at that point. I just loved listening to it. I got consumed with it. Anything that was hip hop related, I just, I'm dating myself now. I had the Walkman, the CD player, just listening to whatever I could listen to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And my mom, I guess I don't know, maybe my mom, she seen it at an early age that I like music. So I come from an evangelist background. My grandmother was an evangelist, and my mom's a prophetess. So my mama pushed the music on me that she thought that I should be listening to at that age. Kirk Franklin and the New Nation, the Gospel Gangsters, Fred Hammond, Will Smith, positive music. So she fed that to me early on when she started seeing that I just liked music.
Okay. Yeah, let me tell you, you're younger than me because yes, the Walkman, the CD, those little earbuds that they had back in the day. And also, like you said, all the different artists back then and the access to it as well, very different from now. Your mom, to shout out to your mother for taking the time to go to the stores and to purchase each and every one of those items to help to get you growing in the music. Did you play any instruments? Were you in the choir or anything at church?
That's the crazy part. I was in the choir by default. I grew up in a family where I had to be at all the Bible studies. My grandmother, she was over the plays, so she had me in the plays. I was in the choir. Now I wasn't the lead singer, but I was in the choir. But I didn't play any instruments. My immediate family wasn't heavily involved into music. Now I have uncles and stuff like that play, but my immediate family wasn't into music or anything of that nature.
Okay, but
But
that choir, that
I had,
tool of that voice.
yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I've spoken to many artists that gospel was that first genre of music. And gospel and hip hop definitely are connected because that identity, that expression, that ancestral instinct to express yourself in a way, in a rhythm that is most important and brings in those emotions. So you were listening to the music at a young age. When did you realize that it was something bigger than that? When did you realize that was something that you liked and something that you wanted to do professionally?
Round about 15 or 16, my cousins, my friends in the neighborhood that I was growing up in, they would have like little house studios. So, people set up the house studio where you could record in the closet. And, we started playing with it. I would also record myself on my auntie's tape player and hear myself back. I would call into the local 94.1 and try to rap online. So it was something that I was starting to fall in love with. I was getting my hands with, but I still hadn't made that decision like I want to really, really rap. But it was something I was toying with, writing raps in class, and I think I got bit one day. I went to a professional studio and I recorded a song and I heard the clarity. I heard how clear I was over the beat. And it was just like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I just knew that day. I loved that feeling of going to the studio, hearing what I wrote, hearing me on that beat, hearing me clear back. And I say, and I've been chasing that high. When people talk about getting addicted to crack cocaine, they talk about the user chasing that first high. I've been chasing that first high, falling in love with that one studio session for 21 years now.
Interesting. Very interesting. I wonder what that beat was right, that you heard and just piqued your interest. And you're very true. Many people that are in hip hop, you know, it all started at a very young age and just continues to manifest itself and just becomes a part of who we are, how we breathe, how we think.
Correct.
And so also, you know, growing up in Baton Rouge, right? EBR. Um,
Right.
what did the music scene look like around you? Like, what influences or what inspirations did you pull from the city itself?
When I first started doing music,
Yeah, then, now, present. Yes, sir.
oh man, I've evolved through maybe 5 to 6 different generations of the Baton Rouge music scene. And I'm really like I'm in a tight spot, in a good spot. I'm old enough to where I'm still considered a veteran in my city, but still young enough to where I'm still like technically not a new artist, but I'm still a young artist. So when I first started doing music, we had the Boosses, of course. Shout out to Boosie. We had the Max Manellis. We had the Trill Entertainments. We had the C-Loc. So we had those type of artists. Then we had our other tier of artists that were just local superstars as well. The Ville Boys. We had Slaughterhouse, Short Bus Boys, Down Bad. So there were tiers of artists where they were still big enough locally and then outside of the city. And all of these people, I'm just kind of listening to their music as I'm figuring out, do I want to even do music? I pulled a lot of my inspiration from Boosie in terms of storytelling, Max Manelli in terms of lyricism with storytelling, and then it evolved to Trill Entertainment. Fox became one of my favorite lyricists, where he showed me that you can still be lyrical and storytell, and you still can do that over banging beats. So I kind of took notes from a lot of different artists as I evolved as an artist. But my first inspiration locally, for most of artists that are my age, we kind of we was locked in on Boosie. Boosie was the young teen sensation for us, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he was.
And then it evolved after that to nationwide rappers in New York and stuff like that. But the foundation was Boosie, Max Manelli, C-Loc, and the whole Trill Entertainment movement.
Well said. Well documented. You definitely know your history when it comes to that BR sound, and as it grows, and it, um, you know, you also being part of that legacy. And you
Right.
talked about both local and mainstream artists that created this sound that permeates in BR, but also in the state of Louisiana altogether. Um, at what point, and we talked about this, that you knew it was more than a hobby, it was something that became part of you. So then, at what point did the name Boxx the Hungry Genius? When did that come about?
Well, that's a funny story. So I wasn't originally Boxx the Hungry Genius. I started off as Lil Boxx with 2 X's.
Okay.
Um, so I got the nickname Boxx from the shape of my head in my neighborhood. I'm from a hood called Sherwood. Shout out to Sherwood. And they would just call me that in high school from the shape of my head. So it was Boxx. I wasn't rapping then. So when I made a decision to rap, I was in a rap group with my cousin and my best friend. I'm like, well, what's my rap name gonna be? So you know, you literally, there's no manual to how to become a rapper. So I'm like, well, my hood already calling me Boxx. My real name Chris. If I come up with a rap name, that's just too many aliases. So I stuck with what my nickname was, Boxx.
Okay.
And then I just put Lil on the front of it. And then shout out to the OG Boxx, another dope lyricist. I think that you definitely need to have on here. I found out that he existed because I was young in the game. I didn't know he already had established names. So I'm like, wow. Now what I'm gonna do? There's another Boxx. So then I added an extra X to my name so I could just separate myself from a branding standpoint. And it started then. It started around 16, 17. Lil Boxx. I signed to an indie label here, and that's when my career started. And I stayed signing them for about 8 or 9 years. My artist development came from that. And then when I got out of that deal, I was a grown man. I signed as a kid, but when I got out the deal, I was a grown man now with a child. So the things I was rapping about, the things I was talking about, the things that I was thinking and doing now wasn't what I was doing when I was 17, 18, and 19, right? So what started to happen was I was getting more lyrical, more conscious, still edgy, but the Lil on that name has started to fade out in the music industry. People were starting to associate Lil with like, and there's no disrespect to any artist like a Lil Pump or a Lil Zane or a Lil. When they heard Lil now, it wasn't revered like a Lil Wayne or something at first, where people thought elite MC. They thought, oh, you might be a pill popping artist, or you might be a swag artist. So what was happening was my name had got outdated based on the industry evolving, and my lyrics was getting better, but people was prejudging should they listen to me because Lil was still on my name. So one of my homegirls that did photography for me one time, she said, I went and checked out your music box. She said, I didn't think your music was gonna sound like how it sounded based on your name. And I know women, y'all women know hip hop, y'all know a record. Women could tell you how to dress. If a woman points something out, I always take heed. So I say, if she's thinking like that, how many other people would think like that? So I prayed. I'm gonna be honest. I prayed. I say, God, I cannot release no more music unless I have a new rap name. I had stepped away from the music industry at that time for about 3 to 4 years to go learn the life insurance industry. And I knew I was ready to take my feet and step back into music full time, but I needed a new rap name. I had dope songs I was writing behind the scenes, but I'm like, I cannot drop these lyrically better songs with the name Lil Boxx. And I prayed. I said, God, I need a name. And I didn't text. I went downtown to a meeting and I met a homeless man. He asked me for some money. I said, I don't have any physical cash, but I say, I can either buy you something to eat or I can pray for you. So he said, I'll take a prayer, young man. So boom, I'm looking at his bike. His bike has bells and whistles on it, radio, TV, everything. Can't make this up. I had just prayed to God for the rap name 10 minutes before I got out my car. So I'm walking with the man. He's going his separate way. I done prayed for him. God bless you, and I go my separate way. And then I say, man, you put all that stuff on your bike? He say, yeah, I put all this on my bike. I say, man, you a genius. He said, oh, thank you, young man. So as I'm walking left, he's walking right. He looks back. I remember this day. Mm-hmm. He looked back. He said, young man. I say, what's up? He say, I'm not just a genius. He said, I'm a hungry genius. And he said it with so much conviction. And when I walked away, I say, that's it, God? Is that it? And then I say, I'm going to make sure if that's it. So I took that name, Boxx the Hungry Genius, Boxx the Go-Getter, Boxx the Grinder, like 5 names, sent it to people I trusted, my mom, my business mentor. I didn't tell them about the story, and I just let them pick. And most of the people say we like Boxx the Hungry Genius, and that's how Boxx the Hungry Genius was born. So I started off as Lil Boxx in the beginning of my career, and then maybe about 6, 7 years ago, before the pandemic started, I changed my rap name to Boxx the Hungry Genius and started rebranding myself. So I know that was a long story, but that's how Boxx the Hungry Genius came about.
Oh, not a long story at all. I'm so glad. And you could have went into even more detail as needed, the street in the Capitol and all the different things. But I'm so thankful that you had the heart to take the time to listen, right? And, to our homeless community, there are so many people who are in poverty. And so taking the time to say, you know what, I can feed you, I can pray with you. And the prayer that you had already prayed was already being manifested. And I would love for you to describe, and maybe that's something you do in the future, or maybe you have artwork to describe that face that genius shared you when he told you the name Hungry Genius. That's such a fantastic story, right? I'm so thankful you got to share that with us on this platform, because those are those moments, those connections that happen, especially when you're praying and you're fasting and you're wondering, I need a sign, I need this. And you had the wherewithal to accept exactly that moment just as it was given. That's a phenomenal story, Boxx. Wow.
Yeah, man, God is good. I can't make that story up.
Mm-hmm. God is good all the time and all the time. Got it.
Yes, ma'am. He is. Yes, ma'am.
And then some great insight that you gave there too is the name Lil Boxx. And there are many artists outside of Lil Wayne, and even he went into Tunchi and, changing his names from taking off the Lil, and even Bow Wow, he had to drop the Lil. And so that's something that is a marker in hip hop with that LIL surname with the artist name that people really have to consider, because it does make me think about Lil X and Lil Nas and other
Right.
artists who do fit that trope of drug using type music,
Yeah.
same type of sound. And so shout out to your homegirl for telling you that, for noticing that the
Right.
music doesn't match the name. And so doing that, it changed everything. So that, again, that is a great story and history as you continue on building your history. But that is a great start to making that change that really marks your legacy.
Right. Yes, ma'am. It does. You're right. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, I appreciate that, and shout out again to that homegirl for sure. Um, and so how would you describe your sound to someone who may have never heard your music? I've listened to your music for sure, and it definitely reminds me of home. But to our
Right.
listeners, give us a description. Take as much as you need to describe. If someone has never heard your music, let's get them to hear that music. Talk to us, brother.
Right. I'm gonna steal this from my homie Quick Draw. Shout out to him. He's another dope lyricist out of Baton Rouge. He described not me as this, he described a slew of lyrical artists in Baton Rouge like this. I would say that I'm an edgier J. Cole if I had to describe me. Right. And I'm not taking credit for that. Quick Draw, he actually said that in terms of a lot of other artists that are like similar to me in Baton Rouge. But I would say edgier J. Cole, whereas I can give you a street record, or I can come and give you a conscious record, or I can give you a heartfelt record, but it's always going to be drenched in high top tier level lyricism.
Right.
Also with some banging beats though. But I'm so versatile. I can give you a record like a Dear Mama like Tupac, but then I can give you a Blame It on the DJ.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ratchet and I'm righteous. I'm making an announcement on your podcast, an exclusive right now. I created a genre. I haven't put the project out yet, for lyrical artists out of Baton Rouge who still know how to appeal to the nation, called Jigga Lyricism. Um, so it's where you can still appeal to the Baton Rouge market and the surrounding areas, but you still have a nationwide sound to where you still don't sound local. So that's how I can describe my music. You know what I'm saying? The edgier J. Cole, high level lyricism, but I can still get on a club record and still meet the people where they at who might not like high level bars, but they might want a catchy hook, a banging beat, and they still don't mind when they get in the car, break down my bars and my verses. But then also I can go all the way elite level lyricism for the backpackers and the college people that's like they want to get their pen and pad and break down my double entendres and all my metaphors and my similes and things like that. So that's how I would describe my music.
Oh man, that is a distinct description there. Ratchet and righteous, and then that
Yes.
jigger movement. And so you have a jigger lyricism.
Yo.
Fantastic, piqued my interest. Exclusive here on the Hip Hop Scholar podcast. I can't wait for that, because it's important for me, and I told you this in the pre-recording, that from it's important for me to promote Louisiana, because the history of Louisiana and hip hop has been earning our stripes in the hip hop game, like having to fight to get recognition, especially like in the 90s, which is where it really all began, in the 90s, and really being influenced with a lot of Houston records, Memphis, and Georgia. And
Yep.
shout out to A Ball, MJG, artists like Outkast and UGK and all of
Uh,
them, and Louisiana, with your Master P's and your Cash Money Records. It really took such an effort, and it took the cities, it took the state to really support and to make that vision happen, and still continuing to do so, because whenever any Louisiana artist gets that recognition, it is worldwide. There's very
yes.
few Louisiana artists that when they get into that limelight, that the world doesn't know who they are. They absolutely know. They want to see more. They want to hear more. And that just rings true to, the strength and the resiliency fighting in this genre, especially with the East Coast being the mecca. That's where hip hop started, and then you have the East Coast
Right.
West Coast beat, and then you have the like you said, the backpackers or that Midwest sound with Chicago with Kanye and Common
Yeah.
and all the things. But Louisiana
Right.
has that tradition still of lyricism and bounce
Yes.
and ratchet
Yes.
and just being
Yes.
able to do all the things. And so, yeah, I want that to be something that is respected and known and continue to be a part of that conversation whenever anybody brings up hip hop.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. That lyricism and that bounce. Everybody can't go make a club record, but still be able to still tell a story, but then also still be able to put together some words that are witty. Some of my elite level lyricists that I'm attracted to was Wayne. I'm a big T.I. fan. I'm attracted to people down south that could still go ahead and give you the street raw, elite level lyricism, the anthems and things like that, and they can go every which way. Sometimes you have rappers that are very elite level lyricists, but they can't make a club record, or they only can rap on certain type beats. One thing I could say about our down south artists, especially the Louisiana artists, we're so versatile. You could put us on a radio record, a pop record, and we'll still conform, stay true to ourselves, but we'll make it our own when we get on the song, if that makes sense. That rhyme, we'll make it our own when we get on the song. So, I love that. And when you can be that versatile, then you get booked in different places. So I might have a weekend where I'm going to perform in front of the step community. Shout out to the fitness community who's taking a loving to my music. But then I might go do a club the next day, and then I might go do somebody's sweet 16 or wedding, all because the versatile records that I might be able to perform in those different venues. So you can't really put a lot of our artists in a box. You know what I'm saying? So I'm excited about that. You described that perfectly.
That's right. They don't call me the hip hop scholar for nothing now, Chris. Trust that.
They don't.
And
Yeah, right.
right. And I live in Houston. I've been in Houston for over a decade, and just the love of hip hop in my own lifespan. It's just like you said. I think about Lil Wayne's mixtapes, and he's taking tracks from everybody and making it his own. Also, when you talked about Ti is currently gaining traction for really beating 50 Cent right now. Him and the
Right.
family. It's amazing to see how the South has this prominence in hip hop, and then along with you, not only are you an artist, you are CEO, you are a producer, you are making tracks. So to unpack your brain, I want to know from as an artist perspective. I want to start there first with you, Boxx. Whenever you are making music, I'm always interested to know: are you writing the lyrics first? Is that what you do, and then you find a beat later, or is it the beat that you have to create the beat or hear a beat and then you're writing? Or is it just a feeling, a freestyle, and then kind of edit from there? Is it a mood? Is it, colors, like the spectrum of creating music? What is that
Right.
for you?
That's a great question. So I have to hear a beat first to write the full song. But sometimes I can hear a hook. I'll hear a hook and then I can go take the hook and either find the beat, or I can go to a producer and get them to craft a beat around the hook I hear in my head, right? But in terms of writing, I still put pen to pad. Now sometimes I'll write in my phone because I've trained myself how to write a song as I drive. I'll be in the car most of the day going to business meetings and stuff. So I'll literally write a song, I'll write 2, 3, 4 bars every red light. I've trained myself in the span of 30 to 45 minutes going from one part of town to the other. I can at least write a hook and a verse, and a beat will just be playing in my car on the way to the next song. But I still sit down and I pen, because it is something about penning the bars. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, I still have to hear the beat. If I hear the beat, because I learn music by ear, I learn music 100% by ear. So I need to hear what a beat breaks down at. I need to hear where the beat changes at. I need to hear where the bass kind of comes in a little bit more at. That determines if I'm going to speed up my flow, if I'm going to stay in this certain pocket, if I'm going to ride it like this, if I'm going to set the punchline up like this. So I need to hear the beat so I could craft my delivery around how the beat sounds, if that makes sense. So yeah, for me, it's the beat first, but I can create hooks out of thin air and then get a beat made around it. But as far as the verses, no, I sit down, I take my time with my ink pen on my verses because everything I say is intentional and it means something. Each bar ties together. So I got to hear the full beat to write the verses. But with a hook, I don't necessarily need to. But I got the beat first. We got ourselves a ready-made track if I got the beat first.
That reminds me, when you were speaking, that church background. You know those old 100s, them hymns they sing? And when somebody starts that old 100, then you know, okay, this is what we about to say. And that reminds me of you with the beat, where when you hear the beat, you going into that old 100 hymn. Like, okay, so for this particular one, I got to sing this lyric. For this particular one, then I can go and do these, you know what I'm talking about, them little solos.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. Yes, ma'am. That's true. I didn't even think of it like that.
That's that church background.
It's so much that you say that, Miss Melanie. It's like I think about foundational, how much church helped me musically. You don't see it, especially when you get into the secular world. But as you mature and you evolve, you see all along that the church is still there with me. I'm in the secular industry. I'm in the industry, but I'm not of the industry, right? I know who I am and whose I am. So a lot of people don't know this unless they know me personally. I've never done drugs a day in my life. That surprises people, and they're like, "Oh, you've been in the music industry? You don't smoke weed? You don't da?" No, I don't do that. Now I do indulge in a beverage, an adult beverage, but I've never done drugs, so I know how to have integrity in this industry and stick to my moral compass and not have to compromise. Watch this, my artistic integrity. I can stay true to a record, and also my regular integrity as a man. So I've turned down paid features if the subject matter really wasn't who I was. I don't care how much you, well, Boxx, man, you could rap about it this way. No, I can't, because people that know me know I don't do that. I'm not on that, right? So when I think about what is it that you just said earlier? When I think about just hip hop in general and the things that I've been able to do and talk about, it all goes back to just like listening to the beat, knowing how to get my point across when I'm rapping, and also saying something that has a message. So going back to that church background, when I hear my music now, I'm like, this whole time I've been being spiritual with my records, whether I knew it or not. So even when I make my club bangers, the feedback from the fans and the supporters be like, one of my big records too is called Make a Move. And people inbox me and be like, man, Make a Move just make me get up and it brightens my day up and it gets me going. And I'm like, for real? And, my heartfelt records, I've had people get off drugs, off cocaine and stuff from listening to my heartfelt records. And these records that I didn't even push, they wasn't singles. But some kind of way they found who they needed to find. And I think about that church background a lot now, just me learning music by ear. Okay, my grandmother having me in the church, did that play a part? I write R&B records. The songs that you hear from me where people are singing on the hooks, I wrote those hooks. So I've taught myself 100% how to write. I'm self-sufficient in writing. I've never had help writing a record in the studio ever. Okay, so yeah, people might hear me on these songs and I might have people singing on the hook, but what they don't know is I've written the melody, told the singer how I want them to sing it, or I tell them to make it their own. But I say, man, all of this goes back to how much of that church foundation, understanding music, my grandmother having me in the choir, me being able to hear a hook in my head of somebody singing it, and I had no musical training. I've never been to a musical school, so God just has a sense of humor. You hear my artistry now, you'll think, oh, he definitely got music in his family. His mama probably sung, or he was around music all the time. I actually wasn't. I just found this, or it found me. I fell in love with it, and then I had a desire to get so good at it that I taught myself how to get great at music. But I've never had no musical training, you know. So to be able to be in the game 21 years, develop other artists, knowing how to hear a hit now, telling the artist that's the one you need to push, or do this, or executive produce, man, take the beat and do this. It comes from years of experience, but it's still all learned by ear. So that gospel background has a lot to do with it. It's spiritual. You can feel it, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It rings true. And I noticed that as well, right along with you. And that also transitions to my next section of questioning about being a CEO. So going from artist to CEO to artist development. And it sounds like you have a lot of experience, right, with that metacognition of thinking about every attribute, every angle when it comes to creating the music. You just described it there very well about stopping at red lights, because we're not texting and driving, right? We're not going to
Right,
do that. Okay.
right, right,
So, you
right.
know, taking the time to, to write and unpack, and then having that music to just ring in your ear, and that auditory learning. I tell this to my students, being an auditory learner, not everybody can do that. Everybody's not like that. I'm not. I'm a visual learner. I have to see it. I have to actually touch it and do it for it to ring true to me. So that is a genius, hungry genius, being able to listen, hear, and then be able to break it down from there. So no wonder you went into the CEO role. And talk to us about that. How did you transition from artist to CEO of your record label?
Wow. Oh, that's a crazy story. I will say it starts with Shantae on the track. I always give him his flowers. Shantae on the track is a respected producer from Baton Rouge. He's produced timeless records for some of the most biggest artists coming out of Baton Rouge. I think one of the most notable figures is Jackie Neal, the late great Jackie Neal. And then as he evolved in the music industry, he started producing for the Jiggalators and all of this. So I met him. He was mastering my songs. I used to go to Bottom Line Studio. Gus would mix my records, and then Gus would send me to Shantae. And I just remember one night Shantae called my CEO out the blue. I still was signed to Big Faces Entertainment. And he told us to come to the studio. So I asked my CEO, usually when we go into Shantae's studio, we're getting songs mastered. I say, well, we got some songs we about to get mastered, because she'll be on the same page with me. She say, no. She say, Shantae just wanted to talk with us. So I said, okay, great. So we go to Shantae's studio. I'm sitting in there. I forgot how old I was, but I'm just young, full of vinegar. I'm like, I don't know what this meeting is about. And he got real serious, and it was a crazy meeting, because I'm like, what is this meeting about? And he basically said, man, Boxx, you're a dope MC. You're a dope lyricist. He said, but usually people that can write real good like you don't make it in the music industry. So I say, why? He say, because y'all focus so much on penning the perfect song but never go learn the business. So I was like, wow. So I don't think he was discouraging me. He was indirectly saying, don't just focus on making the best song or writing the best verse. Go learn the business, how publishing work, how royalties work, all of that. And when I run into him every now and then now, and I tell him this story, he doesn't even really remember even having this conversation with me. So it's like God works in so many ways, because the hungry genius who I am right now, the spark that was that conversation he had with me, he don't even remember having it. But I remember leaving out of his studio saying to myself, it's no way in hell I'm getting better at writing, rapping, performing. I'm going through real artist development. I'm passing my CDs out, my flyers out. I'm hanging up my posters. I say, I ain't doing this in vain. So if he telling me that people like me who can rap real good not usually don't make it, I'm like, I'm going to make sure I make it, because I'm going to go learn the music business. So that started the journey of me buying Donald S. Passman's book, All You Need to Know About the Music Business. And then I just started over time. It wasn't one day or 1 month. Just over time, I just started educating myself, looking at YouTube videos, Jimmy Iovine, or the New Edition story when they got taken advantage of. And I started looking at all the artists that got taken advantage of by not knowing the business. Then I got consumed with watching the Berry Gordy Motown documentary. And I became pun intended, a scholar of the music business and how it worked, and I just fell in love with it. And that became a second passion. I started falling in love with the business side just as much as writing the bars. You know what I'm saying? And that started the process. That was the seed that was sowed. And I still wasn't a CEO. So my contract ended with Big Faces Entertainment. And I didn't re-sign with them because they wanted to just move in a different direction. They wasn't even in the music business no more. But I'm still friends with the label and the label mates. They my homegirls, right? So I say, all right, God, I'm now what do? I'm an artist that's developed. I'm a man now. I'm scared to step out on faith because I'm used to having a CEO and a manager and a team behind me. Now it's just me with no team, but I got people that support me. And I have a fan base that I've built, but I don't know how to cultivate this because I'm still thinking I'm just a rapper. And my road manager at the time, shout out to Tony Knuckles, man, a guy that embraced me from Woodville, Mississippi. And he believed in me so much. He got behind me and just pushed me to be great. And I would just argue with Tony so much. I'm like, man, you so much more than a rapper. I'm like, T, I don't want to hear about that. I'm like, I just want to rap, bro. I just want to rap. That's it. He like, man, the stuff I'm doing now, he was sowing the seeds then. And we would bump heads. Man, I see you mentoring artists. I say, I don't stop talking to me about that. Right? But he was sowing the seeds. And while that was happening, I was slowly getting my feet into the life insurance industry. I got into the life insurance industry to take the money from that to pour into my music career because I'm like, okay, now that I don't have nobody putting money behind me, I got to put money behind me. And a 9-to-5 job just wasn't going to do that. So while all of this is happening, me becoming a new version of myself in the life insurance industry, I'm starting to become a businessman, and I'm seeing that I need to have my own. So I met a guy by the name of Donald. Rest in peace to my homie. He became my business partner and my OG. He died of cancer about 2-3 years ago. But I was in a season, right? And I want to be respectful when I say this. I was in a season where I was kind of questioning God, like, man, maybe I would have been further if I had street money behind me, right? So God sent me this person, and this guy was a legit guy, businessman, did taxes, but he also, and he's gone now, so I can say this. He also was a guy that had funds from other places. Let's just say that. So it was God showing me, I'm going to eliminate that thought process so you won't think that you need to get to where I'm taking you to with that type of backing. So I get into a partnership with this guy and his business partner who were solid guys. They became family, but they had access to some funds that you don't usually get a legal way, right? And the partnership worked out, but it didn't work out. So it worked out because it taught me about paperwork. They were street dudes, so they was real big on return on investment. Anything we did, they wanted people to sign paperwork. I had never been intentional on paperwork, so that showed me that. They was real big on making sure that, contracts got signed. I never was getting contracts signed, so I learned something from that. It didn't work out, though, because I had the knowledge at that point. I had been in the music business about 14, 13 years. Mm-hmm. I had the knowledge of how to move, how to tell them how to spend their money. I just need to rap, but I could tell y'all how to spend the money because I didn't bump my head with my last CEO. They didn't understand that because they was used to fast money, so we would bump heads in the meetings. And they would always tell me, I'll never forget this, Miss Melanie, I would cringe. I would be so right in the meetings about whatever direction we was going in. And they would say, but who paying for this Boxx? Who got the money? And it would always be the leverage. And I would cringe because I didn't have the money. But I wasn't signed to them. I had negotiated a joint venture, a 50-50 partner situation, right? But they brought the money. I brought the expertise, the business savvy, and the bars, right? but they would talk to me sometimes as if I was signed to them. So we would bump heads, and they were out, and I said to myself, I said, I'm not gonna put myself in a position again where nobody ever be able to tell me, but who paying for this? So the contract ended. We put out 2 dope records through that partnership. Music Symbols and Dollar Signs, Miss Hustlevelli, and I gained a great friend in Donald. His nickname was Moo Moo. And Moo Moo taught me about the importance of having a great engineer. He like, man, if your records are mixed good and the engineer know what he's doing, that makes the song. So he started to become like a music mentor. And we would just ride around Baton Rouge and listen to Prince and listen to old records. And he was an older cat, but he was teaching me, and we had developed a real bond. And man, we got so close. He never told me that he was dying of cancer. He never told me, man. And you know, he passed, but I was able to eat with him on his deathbed, and he passed the next day, and my dog, he went to heaven. But after that partnership ended, I started Hungry Boy Records. I say, I cannot be in a position where somebody can have their thumb on me in any type of way, right? So that situation with my partner Moo Moo, it forced me to go start my record label. I don't get in that partnership, I probably don't become a CEO. So I start Hungry Boy Records, and I signed myself to myself, and I say, I'm just going to do this independent thing, and I'm just going to lock in and bet on myself 100% and build my team. I already had the artist development. I was in somebody's, you know, I learned that in order to have your own team, you got to be good at being a part of somebody else's team sometimes. So I learned the artist development from Big Faces Entertainment, and I had a great time there. We just didn't know the business though. So I took my artist development, my experience with my partner Moo Moo, and I took all of that and I say, I'm gonna go start Hungry Boy Records, and then I'll build my own team. And that's how I became a CEO. But I gotta give a shout out to Moo Moo, and I gotta give a shout out to Tony, because Tony always pushed me, man, you so much more. And he always would tell me to step into my role. And it's been great stepping into my role. I've just been hard-headed, Miss Melanie, so I like to do things on my own time. But everything is coming into fruition. So that's the long story of how I became a CEO. But shout out to Shantae, too. He sowed that seed and told me to go learn the music business.
That's right. All of that. I appreciate that entire story. I was listening. I'm an active listener. You know, going from self-made of learning and reading and researching, YouTube University, we call it, where you're taking the time, looking at the different, look at how BBD got messed over, and even
Yes.
NWA and TLC, like looking at those things and internalizing it. You know, it boggles me how people can watch a movie or read a book and miss the whole premise, like miss the whole idea of what you're supposed to learn from it, but it was never lost on you. And then also to make the connection that you were selling life insurance to people. So it makes very much so sense that you're talking to people about setting up their lives, about protecting their lives and ensuring that they are well taken care of, and then transitioning that into artist development. You know, God was building you then with that life insurance. You were doing that for what you say, like 3 to 5 years, and then transitioning back and forth in music. You know, that box head and being hard headed, you were just trying to be surface level. But God kept putting people in your life to push you and elevate you to see exactly everything that you're doing was going to be connected. You know, everything we do is never wasted. There's a specific reason why. Just like that homeless man you met, just like, you know, like you say with Shantae, the Big Face Records, and you're still good with them. You know, it wasn't ever about burning bridges. It was about being elevated. And so going from artist to CEO, you know, you were getting ready for that. It wasn't just, you know what, one day I want to be CEO. You were kept being placed in positions where you had the heart to say, I can't let myself be in this situation. And then having the mind to connect all the things that you had been learning. You know, there is not one classroom in the world that can have taught you all of that. And so it definitely shows about your genius in being able to make those connections, Chris. And so from life insurance to reading to researching to having the experience as the artist yourself, and then being put into that cringe position of
Yeah.
I don't want to be like this, and that makes you one of those CEOs that artists will gravitate towards because you understand the masters, you understand, how to, articulate on a record and still have your identity, but also that life insurance to ensure that you're taken care of in the end. So that leadership was always in you, and people will always see that in you as well. It just takes a while for people to see that of themselves. And you said it best that when you started Hungry Boy, your very first artist was self, and you went in
Correct.
100% with that dual role of being in charge and also being led at the same time. So, continuing in that great success, I for sure claim that well with you.
Thank you. I receive that so much. Thank you. I appreciate that, Miss Melanie. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
It's such an
Yeah.
amazing story. I mean, I don't know if you've talked about writing a book or doing some type of documentary or even a movie. Like the narrative that you were saying that story with, that may need to be something in the future that you consider is putting that on film or putting that in a text in some sort of way, because that's a powerful story.
Which one? The one about which part of the story?
Really all of it, from the homeless
Oh,
men that name, from being in church and being in the choir, not being the solo in the choir, but just going to Bible study, going to all these things, the cringe moments, when you were performing as an artist. I think every bit of your story, like you're such a great
right.
storyteller, it's like, man, like this needs to be, in a
Yeah.
narrative, yet also like a workbook at the same time. Like, have you ever thought about that?
Not a workbook. That's a great idea. I have been writing a book about my life for the past 7 to 8 years, and I'm prolific at times to where I'll write a record and know the record is not for this time, but I'll be writing in the future, and the song might not be relatable to me to 3 to 5 years later. So this book I started writing about 7 years ago. The name of it is called "Blinded by My Own Ambition," and I've always managed to get in my way in life, but course correct and still hit my goal. And that's not nothing to brag about. Eventually, I had to learn to stop getting in my way. But I
Mm-hmm.
wrote the book to be, first of all, as a diary to myself, to show myself, okay, don't beat yourself up too much of shooting yourself in the foot. Just make sure you don't keep making these same mistakes, but you can show how you still persevered. One of my classmates, his name Frank Robinson. He's a preacher. I remember he said on Facebook one time, he said, "No weapon formed against me shall prosper, even if I created it." And that was so powerful. It's been many a times in my life where I've created my own obstacles, but I still managed to still get to where I'm going. Right. So I knew when I started writing this book, I said, what is the ending of this book? Because if you don't have no ending, then you're just going to stay writing because your life is forever being written, right? So I approach the book like I approach a song. I have a hook, verse, how I'm going to end the second verse, the song, and wrap the song up, right? So I say, what am I going to end this book on, right? Because there's many books I think I'll go on to write, but what would this book end at? So right now, I'm currently #2 in the state of Louisiana in the life insurance industry. So I'm building a huge business on that side, right? I'm making a run to become a broker, which is called a regional vice president, which is a huge deal. I'll be one of the first artists in Baton Rouge to have a life insurance agency. So my point in saying that is, I say my book needs to end with me getting promoted to regional vice president, and all the things that I've endured in the past 11 years of getting into the life insurance industry and struggling with balancing being a businessman, an active father, and still trying to stay relevant in the music industry. So to answer your question, I do have a book. It's called Blinded by My Own Ambition. I've been just writing a little bit at a time, but I know that I can't complete the book until I get my regional vice president promotion, which the goal is July 1st of this year. And when I woke up the other day, God just told me, he put something in my spirit. He put from rapper to regional vice president, and I liked it. I wrote that down.
Hmm.
And it's not That might need to be the subtitle of the book. But it's not me leaving music. It's just me evolving, transitioning from a rapper to a regional vice president. And that music contract that I longed for so many years, it's like, no, I might sign that one day, right? Sign a regional vice president contract, which will make me a broker. Obviously, I'll make more money. I have more agents. And then I'm totally self-sufficient where I can put more back into my music because now I've created a successful business to fund the music. And if you could fund your own music, you know this, Miss Melanie, you can get more bigger and create more leverage. So when you do go talk to these people who will cut deals with you, you're not at their pecking. You're not going in there begging anybody. You can walk away because you have your own relationships and your own finances, you know? So, yeah, I have been writing a book. You know, that's another exclusive. Nobody knows that. It's called Blinded by My Own Ambition. And that is a book that I plan on releasing, or at least finishing up this year after I go regional vice president, and releasing at the top of next year or at the end of this year.
Fantastic.
So I'll make sure I get you a copy. And I'll have it personally signed for you.
Okay, good. It sounded like there was some literature that you had to create. And the movie part, maybe that's something extra that you may do where you can definitely showcase Moo Moo and Shantae and those moments, those intricate times in such a visual way, because people, they take for granted the story of what it takes. They think that, it happens overnight. I write a song, I get on the radio, and boom, I'm a star. And that's not how it works. And the reality, and with that, the reality of it is the management part where you can get all this money. You could be a 21-year-old superstar, get all this money, mismanage it. And then by 25, 26, you're broke and you're starting all the way over and never had an understanding of why or what happened. And that's so always unfortunate whenever you do see these careers, they shine and then all of a sudden, they over at the Burger King or they're over here at the gas station, which there's nothing wrong with that. At least, they're not in rehab and they're not strung out. But there are many celebrities, whether they are movie stars or, they reached the apex but couldn't handle it and not understanding that part. So I'm very, very happy to hear about you writing a book and having that there, and you are also directing people as well. So it definitely shines through with what you're sharing, Chris, for sure.
Yes ma'am. I'm excited.
Good. You should be. You absolutely should be. I'm right there with you. I have one more question for you. And there are so many other things that I know you can share because you are very self-made, and very much so something that I would like to learn more from and share with my audience. I would like to, ask for another invite for you to come back to the podcast.
Yeah,
if you
that's
have
done.
Okay.
Oh, that's done.
Okay.
That's done. You put my word on here. This recorded. That's done.
I sincerely appreciate that.
Maybe the next time I come back, I have a project that I'm working on, a mental health project called Pain in My Pen. It's just a full project of nothing but heartfelt records, no club records. So maybe when I come back on, you've been and listened to it, and you break down the project, what songs you like, and why did I write certain records, and we could talk about the project as well on the next interview.
That part, and I'm writing that down. I will definitely do that. And also, I've spoken to a few artists who are, especially Black males, that have talked about mental health in their records. Like Malik Anthony was talking about, he does vent rap and how, that's his therapy, rapping being his therapy. So I'm thinking maybe even like a conference. Like if I can get all of those great minds and having you all to talk to each other, that's something definitely to try to do in the future. I'm writing all that down. For sure.
I got it. But one of my biggest records off Pain in My Pen is going to be called When a Black Man Cry. So maybe we do a Black Man Cry conference. Who knows?
Okay. I'm writing that down. When a Black Man Cries. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, that's going to be records off my project.
Yes, sir. Such great information. I still want to ask this last question for our audience, and just another reflection for you as well. If you could talk to your 16-year-old self, what would you tell Chris at 16? What would you tell him if you could?
Wow. Nobody ever asked me that. My 16-year-old self, I would say, breathe. Breathe. Breathe, and I would say, of course, go learn the music business. But I would just say breathe, and I wouldn't say slow down, because I remember where I was at 16. That was a tough time for me. I leaned into music because I lost my grandfather at 16. He helped my mom raise me. So I got in a lot of trouble after that, got expelled twice. I went from a straight A student, respectable kid, to talking back to my teachers. I really was emotionally, I had checked out, but I leaned into music heavy, but I just was running. I was running so fast. I didn't care what the consequences was. I just was doing what I wanted to do, but still pursuing music. So if I can go back and talk to the 16-year-old me, I would say just breathe and slow down a little bit in terms of the bonehead decisions I was making outside of music. But also go and learn the music business. It's a business. I would have been way more intentional with what I was doing back then had I known I was in a business. I just was excited to rap. So that's why I have a passion. That's why I started Hungry Boy Coaching University. I got a passion to help the younger artists because I know that feeling. Nobody doing split sheets in the studio. What is a damn split sheet? Excuse my language. So I don't like when the industry say, oh, well, that's on them because they should have known they was getting into a business. No, that's easy to say. And I know that ain't had nothing to do a lot with the question you asked, but it goes back to learn the music business, Chris, at 16, because that's when I made a decision to do music. And that's when I made a decision to sign with Big Faces Entertainment. God is so great, man, because I didn't even know this. I negotiated a joint venture, my first record deal, and I didn't know it. Candace, that's the young lady who signed me. And I didn't even tell you this. I was signed to 2 lesbians. And that's when being, gay wasn't in. LGBTQ wasn't. So I already started off my career in Baton Rouge different. I was a heterosexual male that loves women, signed to 2 lesbian women with a record label. We had to break through a lot of barriers. But the 16-year-old me and them didn't know the music business. So I would say go learn the business. I didn't have a contract or a lawyer when I signed a record deal with them, right? But they didn't take advantage of me. I went and recorded 18 songs, Miss Melanie, and I kept curving them. They kept saying, Boxx, we want to sign you. We just want you to, and I kept curving them. And I kept curving them because I didn't understand, okay, these are some gay women. You know what I'm saying? I come from a Christian background. Then my partners was in my ear, man, they just trying to take advantage of you, make money off of you. And then one day I just got still and I said, you got to make a decision. Yes, they want to make money off of me. That's why would they want to sign me? To not make no money? So I had to quiet the noise with my partners, right? Then I curved my CEOs for about a year and went and recorded a full mixtape, show you how God works. After I created my 18th song and my mixtape was done, I'm like, okay, now what do I do next? How do I get this out in the marketplace? Thank God for Candace. She called me one more time. In business, I learned is called the fortune and the follow-up. She followed up with me. She said, Boxx, man, I really want you on the label, man, ... And I said, you know what? I said, I just finished 18 songs. I said, I was finna put this mixtape out. She said, well, let's do this. She say, you already got the 18 songs, the mixtape. You spent your hard-earned money to go pay for the studio sessions. Let's just do a 50-50, and we'll bust down the mixtape sales 50%. You keep 100% of your show money, and you keep 100% of your feature money. That was a joint venture. I didn't even know that. You know what I'm saying? And the business started. But guess what? And I'll close with this. We never registered none of my songs. None of that. Not because they didn't want to. We didn't know it was a business. But we did everything else: marketing, promotion, flyers, t-shirts. We made money, but we left a lot of money on the table because we didn't know how the business worked. But they gave me artist development, how to perform on stage, how to hold a mic. That song ain't it. Go back to the drawing board. Boxx, when you come to the studio, you need to be presentable. When you get to the venue, we need to get there on time. The foundational things that make people want to work with me now, they taught me. So the 16-year-old me, to go back to the question you asked, I would say go learn the business on the music side. But on the man side, I had a lot going on. I would just say, breathe, it's going to be all right. You're going to be all right. And I think music outside of God, absolutely, it saved my life. It gave me something to go pour those emotions into until I developed as a young man and had a young man, and then I was able to prosper after that.
Fantastic answer. I'm glad that that was that final answer, and you answered it beautifully, exactly as needed to be shared. Oh man. Thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, Chris. It has been a joy to talk with you this morning. I look forward to talking with you in the future and to continue to look at your journey. Yes, sir. This is the Hip Hop Scholar Podcast, man, where beats meet bibliographies, and we have artists like Chris that showcase all the intricacies of what it takes to be part of the hip hop culture. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are out of here. Peace.
Thank you so much. Man, look, you are natural. I love it. You made my day. I don't care what I do today. My day is gonna be amazing.